All righty. So let's start off with the assignment from Friday. So we're going to go over the pros and cons, the advantages, disadvantages to Truman's ideas and plans, I guess you could say, for Japan. All right. I guess we'll read this first section. Might as well. And we'll get moving on these options. All right. So who would like to read for me? Who would like to do this? Someone, please. Please, please, please. Haley Klinger, do you want to read? I saw her hand up. Were you blocking the sun out of your eyes?
No.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So just read these. I guess there's 3 paragraphs, but just read that section there and we'll get started.
In April of 1945, President Franklin D. Roosevelt passed away. Vice President Harry S. Truman became President of the United States. The war in Europe was all but over. Hitler would be dead in a matter of days, and Germany would ultimately surrender in May. However, things in the Pacific were much different. The Japanese were slowly being pushed back towards the Japanese home islands, but at great expense of American lives and material. American B-29 bombers conducted daily raids on Japanese cities, including destructive
Incendiary.
raids, yet the Japanese still resisted. The Japanese had become desperate as Americans approached their nation. Pilots had resorted to attacks on U.S. troops and ships, crashing their planes and suicide logs in the ships, killing many U.S. military personnel and destroying large amounts of equipment.
All right. Good job. Ethan, how about you read the second paragraph here? All right.
This summer, 1945, Truman was made aware of a secret project for the Manhattan Project. The Manhattan Project was a bomb of enormous destructive power. Only 5 of these bombs had been constructed by the end of the war. The first one was detonated in New Mexico in July of 1945. The test was a success. On August 6, 1945, the B-29 Enola Gray dropped the atomic bomb codenamed Little Boy on Hiroshima, Japan. 80,000 people were killed instantly. 2 days later, the B-29 Spark dropped the second bomb, the Fat Man, on the city of Nagasaki. 40,000 more people were killed. Japan was unmoved to surrender in August 15, 1940.
All right. VJ Day. Victory in Japan. All right. Autumn, might as well finish it off here.
The decision to use the atomic bomb was not arrived at easily by Truman. While it might have been a super weapon to quickly end the war, Truman felt its use could bring huge consequences. Ultimately, Truman elected to drop the bombs, but he had considered 5 options prior to this decision.
All right. Good job. Oh, sorry. Yeah, so we have 5 options here. Okay. 5 options. Well, we might as well read through them here. So I guess we can. Jakari, option 1. What do we have here for option 1? So these are the options that Truman had towards the end of the war of what he could maybe do to finish it off and defeat Japan. So Jakari, what do we have for option 1?
U.S. invasion of Japanese home islands. Most military planners were convinced the only way to end the war with Japan was an invasion of the home islands. However, the stakes would be high. Casualties to American soldiers would be 500,000 troops, more than had been lost in the entire war to date. Planners also feared the Japanese Bushido Code,
Yep.
or the idea that everyone would fight to the death to protect their homeland. American troops were to storm beaches around the nation's sweep inland, taking cities and towns along the way. American and Japanese, both military casualties would be high.
All right, good. So we talked about that with Okinawa and Iwo Jima, how those 2 battles really signified that Japan would fight to the death, right? There will be no surrender. And there is a reason why there's no prisoners of war, of Japan with these 2 battles, because they fought to the death, literally. And it was for the United States, right? That was one of the main decisions why we decided to use these atomic bombs. It's because if we try to invade the home islands, we'd lose about 500,000 troops, maybe even more, right? Maybe even more. And that's what we lost the whole war in general, in the European theater and the in the Pacific theater against Japan. All right, so if we would do that, obviously it'd be very impactful, right? So there'd be a lot of United States soldiers, American deaths, right? All right, so option 2. Chris, what do we have?
Option 2, Soviet Union would declare war on Japan. Stalin had promised Roosevelt and later Truman that the Soviet Union would declare war on Japan after Germany had been defeated. Until this time, the USSR was neutral in the Pacific conflict. Truman considered this option to greatly. The entrance of Soviet troops would lessen the burden of U.S. troops. The invasion of Japan would still have to be carried out. Japan would be invaded from both coasts and possibly end sooner. However, the U.S. did not support communism. Truman and Stalin were already at odds on how Germany should be divided, and the U.S. had fought the Japanese for 4 long years, and the Soviet Union was gained valuable land and resources after only fighting for a few months. Truman did not want any more chances for communism to spread impossible resistance to democratic influence around the world.
All right, good job, good job. So with that being said, all right, we wanted to make sure we could try to stop that spread of communism, right? That option 2, the Soviet Union, they would be a huge threat for the United States and democratic nations all around the world if we allowed them to continue to spread. And if they would have joined into the war in the Pacific theater against Japan, and if they would have put troops on the ground on mainland Japan, then we'd have to divide up the island, right? We'd have to divide up that land, and this would cause another battleground for the Cold War, okay, which we'll talk about here soon, probably towards the end of the week with the Korean War, and eventually we'll talk about it, the Vietnam War. So if we had another war to fight against communism on the mainland of Japan, who knows how this story would have played out for the U.S. and the Soviet Union. All right, good. Option 3, what do we have here? Andrew, go ahead.
Demonstrate the bomb to the Japanese. Some suggested that Truman demonstrate the atomic bomb's power by dropping it at sea in Tokyo Harbor. The sheer power of the bomb might frighten the Japanese into surrendering without using it on the civilian population. However, there were only 5 bombs. One was used as the test in New Mexico. There were public boast by the United States of a superweapon. Many feared that the U.S. might appear desperate to end the war and give the Japanese new motivation to fight on.
All right. Yep. Good job. Good job. So we thought maybe we could try to prevent using these atomic weapons. And obviously this was something that we wanted to try to prevent because of, you know, the civilian targets and innocent people that would die. But with that being said, we had to do something, right? When it was either invade and the lives of many American soldiers or civilian targets, unfortunately, of the Japanese. Okay. All right, good job. All right, option 4. What do we have here, Kale? You want to read that?
Negotiate peace treaty. Many around the world were wary of war while it was obvious the Japanese were going to lose. The price to bring about the defeat would be high. The Japanese military was prepared to fight to its destruction. If a peace treaty could be signed between the U.S. and Japan, many American and Japanese lives could be saved. However, Japan would still be in control of most of the Pacific. The American island hopping strategy had left many islands and people under the rule of Japan. Ultimate victory and surrender was the only way to guarantee these lands would be evacuated by Japan. It was also the only way to remove the brutal militaristic government in Japan.
All right, good. Yeah, so peace would be great, right? Try to negotiate peace without using these atomic weapons, without invading. But we all knew that probably won't be a thing, right? That probably wouldn't be, that wouldn't happen, especially on Japan's side. It's not like they'll just give up these islands. They're going to hold tight to them. They have a strong military dictatorship in a way, right? And they were going to control it as long as possible. So the only way we could really defeat Japan and push them out of these islands with their brutal rule, especially in these territories, which we already talked about with the Philippines with the Bataan Death March. We had to have some sort of absolute victory, right? We needed to push them totally out of these territories, out of these islands, and back to their mainland. All right, option 5. Here we go. What do we have here? Cody, can you read that?
Use the bomb to force an immediate end. The option that Truman ultimately settled on was use the bomb's destructive force. Thought was by destroying Japanese cities, the U.S. could intimidate Japan into immediate cities were selected for the military importance, but all targets contained large civilian populations with accepted casualties. The bomb failed to work. The U.S. would save global embarrassment since the weapon was a secret. The option would negate the planned invasion of Japan and save hundreds of thousands of American lives. Using the bomb could also give the United States an upper hand in Europe in dealing with the Soviet Union. Stalin might be intimidated and given more U.S. demand.
All right, there you go. So with option 5, we know that happened, right? That's what Truman decided to use. And with using atomic weapons, we ended the war, saved thousands of American lives, maybe even 1 million, who knows? And we showed the Soviet Union who's boss for a short time, right? Where we can maybe have them to adhere to some demands. All right, good. All right, so option 1, what are some pros and cons to option 1? Give me some pros. Alyssa, what are some advantages of option 1? So option 1, let's real quick. Okay, all right, so U.S. invasion of the Japanese homeland, islands, yeah. So pros to it, advantages is that this would end the war, okay? So with that being said, we wouldn't have to use the atomic bombs either, right, on civilian targets. What about disadvantages? Jakari, what do you think?
I said lots of casualties.
Lots of casualties, right? Especially on the United States side, and we know the civilians of the Japanese would probably, fight in this conflict as well. Okay, so with that being said, lots and lots of casualties, probably even more than what the bombs actually took. All right, good. Any more to add to that, Haley Claire? What's that? Yeah, the fight to the death, right? With kamikaze pilots, okay? Many times suicide bombers into many of these divisions that the United States had, obviously. So that was a fear. That was one of the disadvantages to this. They're going to fight to the very end. All right, option 2. What do we have, Chris? What pros do you have?
Pros avoid entrance of Soviet troops as less than burden of U.S. troops.
Okay.
Cons avoid USA did not support communism and had disagreements, like agree on anything with the Soviets either.
Yeah, good job. So some pros to the Soviet Union joining in is that we can tag team them, right? We'll have another power helping us with this invasion, dividing up troops, supplies. I mean, even in many cases, people say civilians of the Japanese to fight on this island. The Soviets would probably invade from the north and the United States from south. So we could almost sandwich them together, just like we did with Germany, right? Okay. But we all know that this would do what? This would allow the Soviet Union to claim some of this land at the end of the war. And this would be ultimately the spread of communism and on the mainland of Japan. So that's one of the disadvantages to this. We don't want the Soviet Union to claim more land. We don't want communism to spread throughout the world. It's going to be an issue for the United States, for capitalism, for democracy, right? And it's going to cause some issues. All right, option 3. Demonstrate the bomb for the Japanese. What do we have for pros of this here? What do we got, Ethan? What do you have option 3, pros, advantages?
Power of the bomb and fighting them.
Yeah, right. So if we set it off, maybe out in the bay or out in the ocean for them to see, it'll show exactly what type of power we have, what type of weapon we have. Okay, so this might put fear into their eyes and show that we can use this on many of their major cities if we wanted to. All right, what about some disadvantages? What do you think here? Ethan, go ahead.
There was a problem with them, and they didn't know if they all were going to work.
Yeah, right. They didn't know if these bombs would work. Can you imagine that? They're telling all the Japanese citizens, "Hey, look out over the bay. Look out in the ocean here. We're going to set an atomic bomb off. This could hit your cities if you don't surrender." And what if it didn't go off, right? What if it didn't work? Okay, it'd be humiliation. It'd be embarrassment for the United States. And who knows? Many of these scientists probably get rounded up, trialed, put to jail, maybe even executed because of these secrets that they had of the development of this bomb, right? And this would probably make the Japanese fight a little bit harder, right? Continue this war in the Pacific. All right, option 4, negotiate a peace treaty. What are some pros to this here, Andrew?
Lower casualties.
Lower casualties, okay, all right, yeah. So we can maybe call it quits, an armistice, end the war in the Pacific, and try to prevent any type of fighting moving forward. Okay, good, good. What about some disadvantages here?
Japan might not sign the peace treaty.
Yeah, they might not sign it. They don't want peace. They're going to fight to the very end. And if we do have this peace treaty, whatever islands that they do have or are still acquired by 1945, which they didn't really have too many, especially towards the end of the war, they can keep that. They can use those to extract resources, and they'll still have their government, right? So what are the chances that they will continue their aggression after this war would be closed, if this armistice ended? They'd probably just build back up and do the same exact thing. So we need to try to have absolute victory here. All right, good. All right, option 5, use a bomb to force immediate end of the war. Advantages to this. What do you have, Haley Ryder, for option 5?
If the bomb failed to work, that it would like put a humiliating.
Probably push the Japanese to fight a little bit harder. Okay, good, good, good. What else? Autumn, what do you have yet? All right, yeah, okay, all right. Oh, so that, yeah, the first one, Haley, was a disadvantage, but yeah, for pros, Stalin, yeah, he might adhere to the United States a little bit more. Okay, with the spread of communism after the war, the post-war with communism spreading throughout Eastern Europe and in the Pacific, these Asian countries, he might adhere. He's like, okay, yeah, we don't have these types of weapons, so I want to listen up. All right, Chris, what else do you have here?
For cons or pros?
What about some pros and cons? What do you have?
Pros saves hundreds of thousands of U.S. troops' lives, and the U.S. would have an upper hand in Europe because I guess the Soviets would be more intimidated after that, and we oblige more to what we want.
Yeah.
And cons are destroying Japanese cities and populations.
Awesome. Good job. Good job. Yep. So we're saving American lives. We don't have to invade the home island of Japan, even Japanese civilians as well. And at the same time, for disadvantages, with that, it's going to be, we're going to start literally a nuclear age, right? We're going to see the world we see today, where countries like North Korea testing these bombs, launching these missiles out in the Sea of Japan, and tensions are really high. Right? Who knows? Especially with Iran right now in the Middle East, developing these nuclear weapons. In the wrong hands, who knows what could happen, right? So I guess you could say starting that nuclear age. Eventually, I think it would come around, right? But that being said, who knows? All right, so towards the end of class, I want to go over some information here first, but for tomorrow, I'd like you guys to complete these questions here, these primary resources. All right. So obviously read through these primary resources. Okay. It describes the bomb. Okay. Some of these people that were there, the decisions made. And I'd like you guys to complete these questions. Finish it up. I get it. You might have to resubmit it. That's fine. All right. So that being said, we're moving on here. Moving on. So the end of the war. And we're going to talk a little bit about the Holocaust today. So bell ringer. Let's start off there, so we can get 5 of them in by the end of the week. What was the Manhattan Project? Described by President Truman, thought it was important to use the atomic bombs to end World War II. So I thought it was interesting in the reading, and even indicated that even though he was the vice president, the second in line, second in charge, he had no clue about this project. Had no idea that these were even a thing. It was that top secret. Oh. All right, so what was the Manhattan Project? What do we have here? Cody, what do you have, buddy? Manhattan Project?
Manhattan Project was a military project in the United States where they made 5 nuclear weapons for use of war and for research to further advance these kind of weapons. And they wanted to develop a bomb dangerous enough to end the war. Things like this in Potsdam.
Good.
And Truman thought by using these bombs, we could establish dominance and scare the enemy.
All right, yeah, good job. So Manhattan Project, the development of the atomic bombs, and this started in 1939. Obviously, we used in 1945 to end the war a little bit quicker against the Japanese. And we know we bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and there's many casualties to that. But rather than trying to invade the island, this was a decision made by President Truman. Right? Again, FDR passed away at this time, 1945, right? So Truman is now in charge. He's the president to finish up the war in the Pacific, right? Okay. All right, good job, good job. All right, so terms for today, just 3 of them, and this is it. This is it. Last terms, I promise. I know you have a big, big old list, but that's fine. I'm thinking towards the end of the week we'll have an exam. So, real quick, last 3 terms, and we will have the exam. How about we have it Wednesday or Thursday? We'll see. We'll see. Wednesday or Thursday? Probably Wednesday. I'm leaning towards. I'll put the study guide out today for you, and you'll be ready for that. Is that too soon?
I'm saying
Thursday?
yes.
I gotta find out what I'm doing more tomorrow, man. Because the day before, I like to do a review. That's for sure. All right, all right. How about Thursday? You talked me into it. Just because I don't want Zerby to drop another bomb in here. Oh, just joking, just joking. All right, so Holocaust. We'll talk about this today. What do we have? Chris, go ahead.
The genocide of European Jews during World War II happened between 1941 and 1945. The Nazi Germany program these kind of camps by torture.
Yeah, yeah. So with World War II, we talked about a little bit, Kristallnacht, the Nuremberg laws, okay? Once Hitler started to get in power in Germany, and really the Holocaust started right when he became leader, right when he became the Führer, right, supreme leader. And this would continue on until 1945, the end of the war. And remember, I talked about the Volk and the Leut. He believed that, post-war, World War I, Germany, when they went through that depression, went through those hard times, he blamed Jews, he blamed communists for these issues. And this was, I guess you could say, his solution and his hate towards this ethnic group, okay? Especially in Europe with the concentration camps, the death camps, obviously eventually to the Jewish people, which tomorrow, yeah, that's exactly what I want to do an activity with you tomorrow. So Thursday we'll have the exam. Okay, Thursday we'll have the exam about more of the Holocaust. So I'll talk about it today a little bit, and then tomorrow I have an activity for you about the Holocaust, and then Thursday we will have the exam. All right, good. Yalta Conference. What do we have? Yalta Conference. Haley Ryder, go ahead.
For the meeting of 3 World War II Allied U.S. President Franklin Teddy Roosevelt, British Prime Minister Winston Churchill, and Soviet Premier Joseph Stalin.
Good, good. So we talked about the Tehran Conference, right? There's 3 major meetings between the United States, Great Britain, and the Soviet Union. The first one we already talked about, that Tehran Conference with the D-Day invasion, right? That's what that established, really. Okay. And then now we're going to talk about the Yalta Conference, which FDR is alive for this. This is the last meeting he had with Stalin and Churchill. And this happened in Yalta, and close to, it's in the Ukraine. Okay. Again, trying to stay close as possible to Stalin. Right? That was their goal. And with the Yalta Conference, their idea, their plan with, wrapping up World War II, this was February of 1945. They knew that Germany was going to surrender sooner or later. They're going to split up Germany into 4 sections. Okay. That was their goal at the end of this conference. So 3 sections divided up between the Allied powers, United States, Great Britain, and France. And then obviously on the eastern side, the Soviet Union would get the rest of Berlin, right, and eastern Germany. That was their plan. And Roosevelt, like I said, was still alive for this. Okay, I'll show you a picture here soon of what he looked like. You can tell that his days were soon met, unfortunately, right? He was looking really sickly at this moment and this time. All right, so actually, let me show you a picture of that real quick, of what he looked like at this moment. So again, this was the last meeting with Roosevelt and, the big 3, obviously, but with Stalin and Churchill. So again, that's the Yalta. Take a little bit longer. Oh, okay, here we go. So here's the picture between the 3. All right, you remember we already talked about the Tehran Conference. You can see FDR. Oh, I mean, he's seen better days, obviously. And this is winding down. What's that?
He said that's looking sicker.
He is. He is. Yep, he is. But at this moment, he, obviously he'll live until April 20th. But right around this time, even Stalin and Churchill knew that he was about ready to pass away. And his old age was catching up to him, his polio, and just the stress of being president during World War II through the Great Depression catches up to a person, especially with the idea of this Manhattan Project in mind, right? All right, so again, dividing up Germany into 4 different sections. The 3 Allied powers to the west, right? United States, Great Britain, France, and then the Soviet Union to the east. All right, again, Churchill, not too happy, right? Not too happy about Roosevelt smoozing up to Stalin, but hey, it is what it is. And then the last one, the Potsdam Conference. The Potsdam Conference. What do we have for the Potsdam Conference? What do we got? What do we have here? Zerby, what do you have for the Potsdam Conference?
Soviet Union, United States.
All right. Okay, good job. So this is the first meeting with Truman now, okay? And this would be the last meeting with these 3 world leaders really all together, okay? And we have Stalin, Truman, and Churchill. And this is leading right into the Cold War, which we'll talk about right after this chapter, okay? And this is really setting the stages. Like I mentioned, the Tehran Conference, many people argue and say the Cold War started right there when all 3 of these powers met. And now with Roosevelt, he passed away April 12th. Okay, Truman coming in into leadership, and he's going to decide really the fate of the world really after World War II. Okay, using atomic weapons, and this happened in July 16th, 1945, right after that Trinity test. So, what do you think Truman was saying to Stalin? What do you think he was saying to Stalin, Chris? Right after this test of the atomic bomb. Literally the next day, they met. So he said, hey, we have this atomic weapon. It works. We tried it out. The Trinity test worked. Manhattan Project was a success. So what do you think he was trying to do to Stalin? Yeah, good job. Intimidate him, right? He's trying to leverage his power here. Said, hey, we have this atomic weapon. We can use it literally wherever, whenever. And this will end any type of war just like that. So he was trying to state to Stalin, this was it, man, right? If you don't listen or adhere to our demands at the end of World War II, just make sure, just to let you guys know we have this weapon, okay? So Truman, in a way, was trying to strong-arm Stalin towards the end of World War II with using these atomic weapons. And obviously we know Truman uses the atomic weapons against Japan to end the war sooner. And this allows the United States to have full control of mainland Japan and prevent the Soviet Union from putting boots in the ground on Japan, preventing that spread of communism. So it just shows that Truman, he'll try to strong-arm Stalin whenever he can. A little bit different than what Roosevelt did, right? Yeah, totally different. So this is really setting the stages to the Cold War. Okay, make sure you guys remember this. Potsdam Conference, Yalta Conference, Tehran Conference. These are all important with the big three coming together. And it looks like once friends, especially take down Germany, now already it's shifting towards enemies, right? Between the United States and the Soviet Union with these conferences. Okay, all right. So real quick, I want to go through some of these slides, just one or two of them, that's it. Tomorrow I'll talk about the Holocaust a little bit more in detail. I apologize, running low on time. Okay, and I'll get you working on the activity, obviously. So with the Holocaust, 6 million Jews and 5 million others killed by German Nazis. We already, we talked about that with the term of the Holocaust. Okay, again, I'll talk about it more in detail tomorrow. Okay, I wanted to talk over that a little bit more today, but I just ran out of time. So tomorrow I'll focus a little bit more on the Holocaust. All right, Nazis held prisoners, concentration camps throughout Germany and territories. As the war in Europe came to an end, Allies liberated these camps and helped survivors. So again, we'll talk about this more tomorrow. And I'll show you a picture, next slide here, of all these camps throughout Germany, throughout Poland, that the Nazis created to try to, obviously, with labor camps, death camps, towards the end of the war. Some sad, sad stuff. All right, so this was Hitler's ultimate plan, right, from the very beginning, since he took leadership in Germany. He blamed a group of people for their issues, for their problems. Remember, at the end of World War I, that Treaty of Versailles, he blamed Jews, communists for these issues. We talked about some of the, I used to say, the advanced. This is what we talked about, what was always talked about with Hitler in World War II and each of these problems that emerged and the terrible, terrible things. And unfortunately, we didn't see or know about many of these death camps until 1945. They're happening for about 10, 12 years at this moment. It's very, very unfortunate. So once, obviously, the United States, the Soviet Union were pushing Germany back to their own borders, they stumbled across many of these camps and were shocked to see what they've seen, see what they've witnessed at these camps. And Germany tried to do their best. Many of these Nazis tried to destroy these camps before the Allied powers, before the Soviet Union obviously saw and witnessed what was going on with the Holocaust, with these concentration camps and these death camps. They tried to destroy as much as possible. Okay. Are you guys good with that? 1 second? All right, sorry. Again, the next slide is just a picture, and then I just want to show the the tallies of the deaths, right? The numbers. Okay. Numbers. Good.
So did like the public know about the concentration camps?
Like the German citizens?
Yeah.
Some of them knew, yeah. They just kind of turned a blind eye. If they would have outspoken, if they would have spoke out about it, what do you think would have happened to them? Probably got killed, exiled, pushed out of the country. And towards the end of the war, they were doing their best to show the Allied powers what was going on. It's like, hey, this was going on in our backyard. We couldn't say anything about it because we would have been killed, but here it is, right? All right, so here are the camps. I know it might be hard to see, but there's many, many, many of them all throughout Germany, all throughout Poland, okay, and many territories that Germany acquired throughout this war. As you can see, it's just, the map's just almost littered with these different types of points showing these concentration camps, showing the different types of death camps, Gestapo prisons, okay? These prisons where many of these maybe prisoners of war, obviously people of different ethnicities, like Jewish, communist people, any opposition were held. That's a lot, right? It's a lot. It just shows and signifies a little bit of the destruction and the terrible acts the Nazis were about during World War II. All right, so again, I'll talk about the Holocaust more tomorrow. Here's just some pictures, which again I'll talk about a little bit more in detail tomorrow. Okay. All right, so real quick, here are the statistics, right? Here are the statistics. As you can see, the Soviet Union, they lost about 26, 27 million soldiers, civilian deaths, right? By far the most. And when it came to post-war talk with the big three, this is what Stalin really expressed to the United States, to Great Britain. Hey, if it wasn't for this Eastern Front that the Soviets were fighting off the German army with, then this war never would have won, right? The Allied powers probably probably wouldn't have won this war. It was up to the Soviet Union. And that's kind of how he strongholded Roosevelt and Churchill with these talks post-war and the expansion of communism in Eastern Europe and eventually in Asia. China, you can see, had a lot of deaths as well. Okay, with the harsh treatments, many of these different camps, labor camps that Japan held within China. The United States, as you can see, 500,000 troops, still a lot, but I mean, nothing compared to what the Soviet Union lost, nothing compared to many of these other countries, what they've endured and lost during World War II. Germany, they lost quite a bit as well. Lost quite a bit as well. When you look at the pie chart over here to the right, you can tell that the Allied civilians, 58% of all deaths. That's a lot. And it just really shows what Germany was doing with the Holocaust, obviously, these bombings throughout many of these areas when they're taking over. All right, hey, see you later. See you later. We'll finish up tomorrow. Make sure you guys complete those primary resource questions, okay, about the bomb. Important stuff there. See you, buddy. Have a good one.
I think it's going to be Hydra Captain America.
I don't know. I was thinking that.